to take place on the African continent when it comes to hospitality and tourism?
Hospitality is exactly it. The Future Hospitality Summit Africa makes its return to Nairobi on the 31st of March and the 1st of April, as we understand it, at the Radisson Blu in Upper Hill. So the event is set to bring together top leaders in hospitality, in tourism and investment from across sub-Saharan Africa to discuss growing tourism destinations, attracting investment, very important, and strengthening hotel performance in a very competitive global market. Let's talk about it. Roy Bannister is joining us in his capacity as Head of Strategic Partnerships of Africa at The Bench. Roy, a pleasure to talk to you this afternoon. Welcome to Channel Africa.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Investor appetite for Africa and its hospitality sector. Talk to us about what's been happening, perhaps from a growth perspective and an investment perspective.
So investor appetite for the African hospitality sector is growing phenomenally, actually. And it's being driven largely by increased demand for tourism, both internationally and locally. And let me put that into context before we unpack some of what we're going to be doing in Kenya.
Right.
So inbound tourism to Africa is growing twice as fast as the global average. So Africa is pretty hot now on a lot of international travelers' agendas, but also regional travelers' agendas. So just to also give you a few numbers on what's happening, and because we're going to be heading to Kenya, it might be a good example there. So Kenya is looking to double its tourism numbers, increase them to 5.5 million within the next year. At the moment, their tourism numbers are around 2.4 million. But of the 2.4 million tourists visiting Kenya, 800,000 of those tourists are regional travelers, continental travelers from Uganda, Nigeria, surrounding countries looking to get to Kenya. And that's a trend we're seeing across Africa in all countries. I think post-COVID, a lot of local travelers are spending money and they're looking to explore their regional offerings. So once I put that into context, you'll see that the demand for hospitality offerings is increasing. So when you look at it against this background, so investors are also looking to diversify their investments in classes beyond traditional hospitality offerings of bush and beach, and are looking at opportunities within the luxury markets, included branded residences, long stay apartments, and also more affordable offerings catering for local and regional travelers.
It is 20 minutes after 2 p.m. Central African time. Currently in conversation with Roy Bannister, the Head of Strategic Partnerships for Africa at The Bench. And what we want to do is further unpack what will be discussed at this year's Future Hospitality Summit Africa, which will be returning to Kenya on the 31st of March and the 1st of April. Don't go anywhere. The conversation continues right after this.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
A situação do ativista angolano Serrote José de Oliveira, preso desde julho, tem gerado grande preocupação internacional. Conhecido como General Nila e presidente do movimento União Nacional para a Total Revolução de Angola, Serrote iniciou uma greve de fome em protesto contra a sua prisão, que considera arbitrária. De acordo com a Amnistia Internacional, o estado de saúde do ativista está a deteriorar-se rapidamente devido à falta de acesso a cuidados médicos adequados. Para discutir o impacto deste caso e o estado da liberdade política em Angola, vamos conversar com Dito Dale, ativista e defensor dos direitos humanos.
Nós estamos diante de uma clara estratégia de aniquilar o jovem, porque quando uma pessoa está doente, deve ser assistido. Ao não proporcionar esses cuidados médicos, o que o regime quer? Não quer que esse jovem saia livre e com vida da prisão, quer matá-lo.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África.
Broadcasting in 5 different languages, connecting the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective. This is The Upside for Africa's most exciting content on the radio.
Well, the Future Hospitality Summit Africa returns to Nairobi on the 31st of March and the 1st of April, bringing together key voices in hospitality, tourism, and investment from across sub-Saharan Africa and beyond. Hosted by the Radisson Blu Hotel Upper Hill, this year's summit will focus on destination growth, capital attraction, and improving hotel performance in a competitive global market. Still on the line to help us unpack it is Roy Bannister, the head of strategic partnerships for Africa at the bench. Roy, very interesting what you just said concerning the fact that you're seeing a lot of Africans traveling within Africa. Yes, trying to go to Kenya, but what is driving the rise of Africans wanting to explore Africa? Because previously it was pretty much the internationals, the Europeans, the Americans coming to Africa, but now we're seeing the Africans exploring Africa.
Exactly right. So the international tourism market is still very strong, and as I mentioned, it's inbound tourism is twice the global average. So we're still seeing a very, very strong demand from international travelers and tourists looking for experiences just beyond traditional stays. But for local travelers, you're getting a lot of a similar experiential type travel. You know, there obviously a large component is business travel, but what you're seeing is almost a rediscovery of Africa and its bounty for Africans. You know, I'm based in South Africa, and from a local perspective, I think it's some of it has to do with post-COVID when international travel was fairly restricted. And I think there was this rediscovery of what's on your doorstep, and I think a greater appreciation of what's in Africa for Africa by Africans, which is really great. It's really encouraging for local markets, and it's showing the resilience of the African tourism and hospitality market beyond reliance on international and global travelers, which, as we know, sort of given geopolitics at the moment, are kind of sensitive, and it's really encouraging to see that Africa does not necessarily have to rely on international travel to flourish.
I think it's wonderful to note that it's a future hospitality summit. So just based on the name, I mean, that tells us a lot about where you're going in terms of the themes. But perhaps talk to us about one or two themes that are going to be very pivotal to the summit and some of your strategic partners as well.
So, yes, of course. So the Future Hospitality Summit, our African event, is part of a global stable of events where we draw together investors, operators, developers, and consultants to essentially plot the future of what hospitality is going to look like across Africa and the Middle East and globally. And part of what we do is we matchmake these C-suite decision makers to drive the hospitality growth and infrastructure development across the continent. So we like to think of ourselves as the engine room of hospitality investment and growth across the continent. And some of those future trends, obviously, there are important elements, especially with Africa, that is largely natural resource and natural attractions to the continent. We need to be mindful of sustainability. So sustainability is one of the large overarching themes that we like to consider, mainly because how do we balance commercial growth, the growth in building new hotels, infrastructure and development, and how do we ensure that we do this responsibly? So for instance, there are 577 hotels planned for Africa in 2025. So part of that, I think there's over 104,000 rooms that were planned as part of the development of new hotels across the continent. So when you're looking at this phenomenal growth, obviously sustainability is a very important factor, air connectivity, what the market demands as well, and the insights we unpack at our event are crucial for anybody in the hospitality industry to understand and to get a handle on and factor into their tourism and hospitality growth.
Roy, from what you have observed, global best practices in hospitality, where do we fall short as Africa at the moment?
So probably the biggest standout factor at the moment is skills development and skills retention. We have these phenomenal hospitality offerings across the continent, and we have world-class offerings. But at the same time, the skills development and talent is an issue that we need to really pay attention to. In terms of sustainability, Africa is doing really well. For instance, one of the, seeing as we're headed to Kenya, Embu is Kenya's first safari camp running a fully electric game drive fleet, and that delivers silent, low-impact wildlife encounters, and it's responsible ecotourism. So they also have a 24/7 solar energy farm that drives their restaurants and provides their restaurants. They really tapped into hydroponics. And some of those examples are really great and encouraging for Africa. So the challenges are always finance, finance and getting investors to buy into a project is always a challenge. So for instance, I beg your pardon. So for instance, with Kenya, we're seeing markets like Kenya, Nigeria, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Ghana continue to stand out because they combine strong business and leisure demand with improving air connectivity and infrastructure. So investors are prioritizing destinations where tourism growth is measurable and supported by clear government and private sector alignment.
Roy, can I ask that you stay on the line for us for a second? I'd love for us to just wrap up the conversation, especially for the young people, the youth of Africa who would like to be a part of the development, the future hospitality of Africa, and how their involvement will be, catered for at this year's summit. It's 30 minutes after 2 p.m. Central African time. Let's get the latest sports.
Sports on Channel Africa.